So there are, of course, many stories about failures and less stories about successes, because also user experience is something that, like usability, if everything goes well, you don't even notice usability. But when something goes wrong, you instantly notice that there's some problem with usability. Yeah, with user experience, it's a bit similar. But depends how you take it. So usability should be something that makes the system transparent. You just concentrate in the task that you are doing, and the system lets you do that so that you get into this flow experience. But lately, user experience researchers and practitioners talk more about you really get some experience out of the system. You are not just using the system per se, but the system gives you some experiences. This is a bit tricky thing with a mobile phone, for example. Since I come from Nokia, I like to talk about mobile phones. So often the best experiences with mobile phone don't really come from the phone itself, but the content that you access via the phone. So, for example, SMS is a very good example where usability is actually not so great, because typing on a device that doesn't have a proper keyboard, that's not the best usability for sure. But experience-wise, how great experiences you get when you get some text message that is really valuable for you. It's the content that counts in that case, and not the usability of doing the SMS. So maybe this gives you some idea what is close to my heart. So yes, now I might present myself. So it's great to be here. I come from Finland. And yesterday we had Sikkai Finland seminar, because we had the similar World Usability Day celebrations there. So regards from Finland. It's great to be here, and I'm very surprised to see so many people here today, because I think yesterday we didn't have this many people in our event, so this is great. My topic today is how user experience is done in academia and how it is done in companies, and is there any common in these two planets. And why I want to talk about this is because I have been between the industry and academia myself for many years. So my background is in Nokia Research Center, and there I mostly tried to help the business units of Nokia to do usability work and also user experience work. And for that I wanted to collaborate with the academia. And there I noticed that are these two different planets, because the people are talking so much different things. Now I'm in Aalto University, and also part-time in University of Helsinki. But please contact me to Aalto address, because I will quit the University of Helsinki career end of this year. I moved to Aalto University full-time. So that's my motivation here. So I'm talking about these two planets. Planet business, which means basically industry, and why industry is actually interested in user experience. And then this other planet research, where I talk about the research questions that are now topical in academia on user experience. And then is there any chances to get these planets a bit closer together? And since I'm now an academic person, I should talk like scientifically, but not today. I will give this black and white view that researchers should never do, but I want to make this disclaimer that don't quote me on my sayings today in any scientific forum. So I'm a bit puzzled because I cannot really follow Estonian presentations here. So probably you talked something like this before, but I present now the one view to how usability is different from user experience. So in Nokia we definitely saw this kind of development, that first we just provided the possibility to make phone calls while you are not in front of your desk and desk phone. So that was providing the utility. And then if you want to go to mass markets, you need to make it usable so that everybody can make the call with the mobile phone. So usability was really important long time ago, and still is, of course. But then when everybody provides the same functionality and the similar usability as well, then we need to differentiate from the competitors somehow. And that's why we started to think about the experiences, because we noticed that the mobile phone is a very personal device. People are attached to their mobile phones, and how can we make this mobile phone even more valuable for users. There's lots of publications that talk about this development. But I want to say also that you can turn this like upside down and start from making user experiences and only then provide some utility and usability. There's one model of Patrick Jordan that talks about having the functionality at the bottom of the pyramid, and then you have the usability. And once you get these two right, then you can think about experiences, so-called pleasure. But many UX researchers now think that actually that's not a pyramid at all. You can only start from providing some experiences that are not utilitarian. There's no utility, actually. It's just for playing. And that kind of systems might work well as well. So you can kind of leapfrog. You don't have to go through this development, but you can start from actually experiences. So why companies are interested in user experiences? So now I'm taking the industry perspective here. We are on planet business here. There's one publication that has been cited a lot, this Pine and Gilmore, who talk about experience economy. They talk about differentiation, as I said, also to make your system somehow different from competition. You get customer loyalty. So if you provide some kind of experience with your system that others don't provide, then your customers will select your product also next time they buy a similar product. There's this graph of coffee, what happened to coffee. First there was a business of coffee beans, and that doesn't provide much experiences yet. It's just a commodity. So the cheapest coffee beans you will buy. There's not much difference there. And then this kind of filtered coffee became a product. There you can somehow brand it more. And then ready-made coffee, and now there's Starbucks experience. So coffee is just one part of this experience nowadays. So people go to Starbucks not just for the getting caffeine, but it's an experience. And same kind of story is birthday cakes. I don't know, it's not that well-known story as this coffee thing, but there's like ingredients for a cake first, then you can buy a cake from a shop, but nowadays, especially in the US, you can buy birthday party. You can buy the whole experience. So you get all the clowns in and all the decorations, and cake is one part of this experience. So this kind of development happens here and there, and it will be more and more common all the time. But customer loyalty and this competitive advantage is often the point behind experience design. But what is this user experience about? Companies need to take care that they place the user or consumer, person, human, whatever you call this person, in the center. But in companies you also need to take care of various different things, like user interface, usability, utility, needs, context where the system is used. There's lots of things that different people talk about when they talk about user experience. Often it's easy to focus one of these, but it doesn't make your system successful yet. The broader you get, the better you will be in user experience. But of course, it's quite a mess. You don't really know what other person talks about when they talk about user experience. They can mean it just one term on this table. So what kind of questions industry is interested in? Basically, they are very simple: what, why, and how. I give some examples of more in-depth questions. Like one of the biggest problems is currently that different people talk about different things when they talk about user experience. We should get some kind of common understanding what is this thing called user experience. That's the starting point for all the work. Companies also always have some technology that they master. The company focuses in one technology, and then they try to find how to improve user experience with our new piece of technology. So that's the starting point often in companies. And also because you need to get as many customers often as possible, which kind of experience is it that would attract most customers? This button here. And also, like, if we provide better UX, does it mean that we can increase the price of our products? And how much? What is the user experience worth in money? Then there's this why question, like I think return on investment was already mentioned here. Like, what is the return on investment in our UX work? And also here, like the technology, how much, why do we provide this technology, and why do we want to improve UX? And brand experience is often the reason why we do work on user experiences. They are two different things. Brand experience is not related only to products or services that the company provides, but brand experience also comes from like advertisements, or how ecological, green our company seems to be in media. And it also depends how is the competition. So brand experience is related to user experience. Both influence each other, but they are different things. And then how do we do user experience work? Companies are interested in effective methods to get UX right. I think this was the theme also today in some of the presentations. Efficient methods for UX work and identifying the best solution as early as possible. And this is something in academia people don't easily see, that in academia it's often the case that people test something that is ready, something that you can take to the field and have real users using real system. But in companies, that doesn't help much. It's all too late to notice at that point that, okay, we failed. We need to fail as early as possible, and that's why methods for the very early phases of product development are welcome. Then one slide more about the industry and how the work in industry is compared to academia. So in academia, HCI people are often like one team, and you work with experts, HCI experts. But in companies, there's one HCI person serving many development teams or so, and that one person cannot do the same as the researchers in academia. And the time spans are very different, of course, in companies than academia. The pictures below are from CHI conference, which is the key conference in our field. There was a tutorial about like how to do UX work in agile development, software development, and I recommend this material for you. It's by William Hudson, but it shows that there's one usability person or user experience person bringing in the user data and trying to convince the rest of the company that yes, this is what we should be doing. And he talks about how this would work best. But let's move to the planet research and how things are on this research planet. So, of course, researchers also have this same terminology map, but researchers don't have to cover all these items. You shouldn't actually, as a researcher, cover all these items. But to be able to do valid research, you need to focus in one of these. And when companies work together with researchers, you need to understand that researchers cannot often take this whole picture in. But you need to focus also when doing research with academia. But there's some disciplines that cover more or one part of this terminology map. And HCI people traditionally talk about usability, user interfaces, utility, in which context the system is used in, what are the user needs, and that kind of stuff. Then there's designers. I come from the Aalto School of Art and Design nowadays, so I try to now better understand this design perspective. They talk about fun, pleasure, aesthetics, of course, coolness, novelty, and whatever experience you want to design in. Psychology, people talk about emotions, behavior, meanings, attitudes, co-experiences, emotional bonding. And then there's the economics and marketing people who talk about exceeding expectations, like how to get customer satisfaction. They talk about brand image, value, delight, and pricing. One interesting point, by the way, is pricing. Pricing influences quite much the experience, because your expectations are very different for a phone that costs 10 euros than for a phone that costs 500 euros. So the experience could be much worse on the 10 euro phone. But often you don't see this kind of research happening at all. So what academics can do and are doing is something useful, like clarifying what is this concept of user experience. Well, one key thing is that it's not in the product. User experience happens inside a person, so you cannot design or you cannot put an experience in your product or service. It always is dependent on who is using the system, in which context, and how the product relates to your earlier experiences. And it's inside the user. And often when you come from usability perspective, you still need to move from the product-centric thinking towards user-centered thinking. Then the same map here as earlier for industry. What are the interesting stuff for researchers in user experience field? So many researchers try to figure out what is user experience from very detailed perspective, and that's very different actually what we saw for industry. So there are many researchers who try to figure out how does the experience evolve inside one person, what happens when I have an experience, what are the phases. Or then they are not interested in products at all, but they just want to understand how, when I'm walking in a park, what kind of experience do I have? And there's no products involved always. On the why part, there's not much done. Like, why is user experience work important? What is the return on investment on user experience or something like that? It's largely missing, and there's definitely much to work on that side in academia. Of course, there are some interesting pieces of work, but it's definitely not the focus point of UX research to understand why user experience is so important for companies. Then the how part. There's more research being done, like how to measure emotions. Especially psychophysiological measurements have been very popular among researchers because it's very nice material to publish in scientific forums when you get some graphs how the experience develops while you are playing a game, how your heartbeat goes and whether you sweat a lot or not. So that's easy to publish, and that's why I think it's so popular. But when I worked in Nokia, I didn't really see, can we do something like this emotion measurement for using a mobile phone? Because for games, there's a story, and you design the narrative for the story. And at this point of the story, you should sweat, and here you should be more calm, and so on. But with mobile phone and many other systems, there's no such story. And then these kind of sense in how your physiological experiences go, they don't do much sense. but they are still researched a lot in academia. And other research practices in academia, when I talked about the agile development in companies, it doesn't happen currently in academia so much at all. Like I said, there's a team of HCI researchers that understand each other and can dig deep in the research project topics. And the researcher is often the one who decides like what kind of experience we now develop in this research project. And that was not the case. The decision power is not like that in the industry. And the time scales are very different, of course. And what strikes me when I was in Nokia and we had like hundreds of ideas and we were struggling of selecting which ones should we prototype, which ones should we try out. And academics say, you must try out them all, make a prototype and then you can evaluate it. But it doesn't happen like that in companies. We have too many ideas, definitely. So we have to somehow be able to evaluate these early ideas before we prototype anything. So all ideas cannot be prototyped in industry, but maybe they can be prototyped in academia. And in academia, people are very careful of selecting methods for evaluation, especially that are validated methods. And your research doesn't make any sense if you don't use valid methods for your research. That's why they like to collect objective data from users. That means, for example, this heartbeat and that kind of measures. And they are very easy to publish because they are valid. You can count exactly what is the heartbeat and so on. But in industry, it doesn't always make sense, as I said. Like, what can you tell, how to improve the system based on this heartbeat data? And then these qualitative methods are not so popular because of the validity problem. But yeah, I'm very fond of qualitative methods like interviews. If you want to find out how people experience something, especially in the long run, which counts for your loyalty, interviews are very effective method for doing that. Although it's a bit hard to analyze them, but definitely when you don't have to have scientific rigor in your analysis, you get really fruitful material from interviews compared to these quantitative methods. Maybe this is a black and white view now, but basically this is something that makes a clear difference between academia and industry. So now I have given some glimpses of the life in planet business and planet research, and now I will talk about more like how could we bring these two planets a bit closer together to get some cross-fertilization. And here you see the planets coming together. So the key to understand this collaboration between academia and industry is this terminology and understanding that researchers can focus on one part of experience often, and companies need to see the much bigger picture. So if an industry person wants to collaborate with researchers, you should pick the discipline that you are most interested in, or then somehow try to find a multidisciplinary team that can cover most of these aspects of user experience. once you know what you are talking about when you talk about user experience, then it's much, much easier to collaborate. So this is a two-way thing. I see it very useful for both academia and industry to have this collaboration, although it's not as simple as it could be. But industry, of course, can give really relevant research topics for academia. That was my mission also while in Nokia. Like, I want to make the academics to see what is important for companies. And of course, researchers want to work on something relevant. But we just have to make them understand each other's needs. Like this return on investment of UX work is really relevant topic that bothers industry currently quite a lot. Because user experience is very soft thing, and how can you prove that, okay, we get more profit by working on this item? It's very similar to industrial design or graphic design. How can you prove that this work is worth of investments? So you basically just have to believe. You have to convince your top management. And this pricing thing, I mentioned already that it has not been studied much how pricing influences people's experiences. And what academia can provide industry is, of course, methods and measures, some guidelines perhaps. They can test different methods and what brings the best material or most efficient methods, and methods for the very early phases of product development. Then I talk something about the different phases of UX design and where industry and academia can collaborate. So I think these questions are valid for both industry and academia. Like what does good user experience mean? How to design for good user experience, and how to ensure the design is going to the right direction in regard of user experience. So I'll talk about UX target setting, because I see that's the basis for all UX work, to set the target for user experience. What I mean by that, this is a bit difficult graph. I hope I have some time to explain it, but user experience researchers often think that user experience covers both the functional side, like usability, utility, and then the emotional side. This is a model by Mark Hassenthal. And on emotional side, are there universal UX targets? Nobody knows yet. This work is ongoing. I believe in usability there's some aspects defined as universal usability targets, like efficiency, effectiveness, satisfaction. They are in the ISO standard, or learnability, memorability, and these kind of things. So those are quite universal in the sense that all products that should be usable should be good in these elements, like they should be effective, efficient, and they should provide satisfaction. But there's no similar attributes for user experience that would be common for all systems. But this is something that the academia could work on, because from academia you can see a variety of different kind of products, and you could figure out, like, are there some similarities? And I just make a question mark if something like value or even novelty could be this kind of universal values that, if not always, most of the time would bring good user experience for persons. So this is the level where academia can work on. But then, because user experience is about differentiation, then each company should think about like what are the experiences that our company wants to provide. Like in Nokia, connecting people is the brand promise, and that's the experience Nokia wants to provide to the customers. So that's kind of the UX target then for Nokia. But each company should figure out their own UX target, and it should be related to the brand promise. But then inside the company there might be various different types of products, and each product could provide a bit different perspective or different perspective to experience. And you can define the product UX targets on product level. And that's something that I don't think academics can work so much. But maybe the universal level and company level also, researchers can provide you some ideas how to set the UX target. Then there's this user experience design. I don't have the time to talk about these, but user-centered design is just one approach to experience design. There's some people who just pick an experience by not studying users, because these kind of users' values and basic needs are the same. There's lists of values and lists of experiences or values. Sorry, what is human needs was the right term. That you can just pick one of these, and you know that it's something that is useful for design. And then once you have the prototypes, then you can do some user-centered design from that moment on. But then this third one is practice-centered design. You don't study one user, but you study rather what people do together or individually, and understand that practice, and maybe think about how this practice has developed over time, and what are the different development paths that could have been there, and from there innovate new practices or new ways to support some common practices. Then user experience evaluation is something that I have been working more on. For evaluating something, you often need both measures, like what you want to measure, and then some methods to evaluate. And of course, it depends how systematic you want to be in UX work. The more systematic you want to be, the more evaluations you do along the development process. One example of the evaluation methods is like there are different time spans of user experience. I talked about the psychophysiological measurements, for example, which show very momentary data for you. But in companies, we often want to focus in the long-term experience, like after using this phone for 3 months or a year, how do you feel about it? That counts so much more for companies than one momentary experience during interaction. But this material is freely available in this website all about UX. You can go and check that if you are interested. So my conclusion, there's much potential in this collaboration between academia and industry, and I really see the need that there must be some collaboration, but you need to understand this whole picture to be able to do successful collaboration together. And hopefully we have these planets together one day.